Prison Meddler here, and today, well, since 2019 is about to end, and not only is it going to be the end of this year, it's going to be the end of the 2010s. And what I was going to do is, originally I was going to do my top 10 favorite albums in the 2010s, but I feel like it would be too difficult for that because it'll mainly change a lot. So what I'm going to do is, instead of the top 10 favorite albums of this decade, I am doing my favorite albums each year, which means that I'm going to do my favorite album on here would be each year. So I'm going to start off with 2010. Okay, my favorite album in 2010 is going to be Deftones' Diamond Eyes. Reason why it's my favorite, I just really like the sound of this album, and it also has it just feels like a return to the roots kind of vibe. It feels like return to the elements, the era of Around the Fur and White Pony. My favorite Deftones album is White Pony, but Diamond Eyes is definitely my top 3 favorite Deftones albums. Yeah, it just definitely has the return to roots sound, and I just love the sound of it. I definitely love Deftones in general. I just don't think this band has not released a bad album at all, in my opinion. I don't think any of their albums are bad at all. I just really love that band. Okay, now at 2011, it's going to be Trivium's In Waves. The reason why this is my favorite metal album in 2011, it's mainly because the song In Waves got me into Trivium. Even though I did listen to Into the Mouth of Hell Remarch a few years before In Waves, which is from the album Shogun, but I think that song was played on like Matin 2009, and I just didn't really care for that song that much. And I just don't. And then I loved this song more than I have the first time. Into the Mouth of Hell Remarch. It's one of my favorite Trivium songs. And whenever I started realizing that it's Trivium, I realized that sounded familiar. So yeah, this is mainly why In Waves is my favorite metal album in 2011. Okay, so in 2012, I have 2 favorite albums in 2012, and I can't choose which one is better. The album is going to be Gojira's Elephant Savage. I don't know if I said that right. And the other album is Cattle Decapitation's Monolith of Inhumanity. So let's start with Elephant Savage. I don't know if I said that right. I think it's in French. But this album is also in my top 3 for Gojira. And I was planning on doing an album rank on that band soon, but I am not going to use spoilers on there. So definitely love the sound and the songwriting. Definitely a listen album. If you're into new progressive extreme metal, you might also want to check that album out. And for Cattle Decapitation's Monolith of Inhumanity, I think this is their... Well, originally, Cattle Decapitation is a gore grind band is originally, and then they become more like death metal or death grind, and then modern, and then over a decade later, starting with Harvest Floor, they started adding more melodies into it than their previous albums. And then I believe Monolith of Inhumanity is their first album to have clean singing on there, but they still keep their grindcore death metal into it. But it's just very melodic. I just really love the sound on it. It just has more of a progressive metal into it, and I just never heard anything like that before. I think and it's definitely one of my favorite modern metal albums of this decade. Alright, so next in 2013 is going to be Black Sabbath 31. I think this is their first album, and this is Black Sabbath's final album before the band's retirement, even though Ozzy Osbourne is still making music, and I believe he's having I think he's making a new I think he's about to have an album coming out early 2020, but yeah, I think this is their final album before the band's retirement, and I think this is the band's first album in 18 years, and their first album since Ozzy Osbourne, since 78's album, 1978. And I really enjoy this album. It feels like the old school Black Sabbath, and definitely a great combat album too. But I just can't find the better album than 31. If it was, I probably never even thought of it, or I just probably didn't listen to it. So, that is my favorite album in 2013. On to 2014. My favorite metal album in 2014 is gonna have to be Machine Head's Bloodstones and Diamonds. I just really like this album a lot. I really love Machine Head, even though Rob Flynn's an asshole. But yeah, I just like the progressive sound from this album. It's kind of a lot like Onto the Locust, the previous album, but I feel like this album is slightly better, and I feel like this is one of their best albums ever. After I'm done listening with that, I was looking for the next album, but guess what? That album sucked. The next album, Catharsis, sucked ass. I was so looking forward to that album, even though there was a few great songs from that album, but this is not about Machine Head. It's about, but I'm gonna get more detail to that album in the future. So yeah, if you haven't listened to that album, you definitely want to check that out. This is one of the best metal albums I've ever listened to in the 2010s. Now, on to 2015. My favorite metal album from 2015 is gonna have to be Cattle Decapitation's The Anthropic Extension. I can't even say that name right. I mean, I need to reread. You know what? Let me reread that. Hold on. I just need to find it. The Anthropocene. Sorry, guys. I can't say that name right. Extension. Yeah, I thought this is their my second favorite album by them. And yes, I heard their newest album too, and that was pretty good, but it's not my favorite. Well, no, it's not one of my favorites by them, but it may not be as good as their last two, but I thought this album was amazing. But it's not a disappointment at all, however. But anyway, the Anthropocene extension, again, I apologize if I say that name incorrectly, but I just really love that album. I may not be into grindcore or death grind that much, but I just really enjoy Cattle Decapitation. It's mainly one of the reasons why I got into more extreme death metal, along with Cannibal Corpse and DI Side. Yes, I just feel like it's a really great album. That's all I can say about it. Okay, now on to 2016 is going to be Avenged Sevenfold's The Stage. When I first listened, as I mentioned on my album ranking for Avenged Sevenfold, the first time I listened to it, I didn't really care for it much, so I decided to try again and listen to it, and I just really liked that album. I just thought this album is very well written. I just feel like this is their concept. Originally according to Wikipedia, Nightmare was supposed to be a concept album that was from Duress' plan. However, they decided to drop the concept due to his death and decided to rewrite it. So yeah, I feel like this is an amazing album. Definitely, it has more of a progressive metal into it. I was just blown away by that album. This album is actually my second favorite Avenged Sevenfold album, behind Waking the Fallen. However, the previous album, Hail to the King, is my least favorite. I just feel like that album is their weakest, in my opinion. But besides that, I just really love the writing on this album, especially the song Exist. I have never been this blown away by that album before. Hopefully it stays at number 2. Maybe there's a possibility it would change my mind up to number 1, but I'm pretty sure it's going to stay at number 2. Okay, now on to 2017 is going to be Trivium's Sin and the Sentence. Now, as I mentioned before on my Trivium album rank, I've ranked this album as my third favorite. I just felt like it has a Shogun feel to this album. What else can I say? It's definitely one of their best albums in the past decade. This album brought back screaming, as it was absent from their previous album, Silence in the Snow, due to the injury Matt had. I just felt like this was a fantastic album. It's definitely one of my favorite albums in the 2010s. Okay, now on 2018 is going to be Judas Priest's Firepower. When I first started listening to, before I started starting to listen to that album, I thought, it's going to be a typical album, but no, they're still kicking ass in their 60s. I believe the band is already in their 60s now, and they've been playing music since 1969. Rob Halford is still singing like the best as he can. It's just, this is definitely one of the best albums in like the past. I think this is one of Judas Priest's best albums since Painkiller. I just really enjoyed that album. I feel like this is their this is like the modern version of Painkiller. I just really enjoy that album a lot. Even though their previous album, Redeemer of Souls, was pretty good, but I just thought it's not their best, and I just don't think it's gonna be their like my top 5. I think this album is probably in my top 5. I just really enjoyed that album a lot. Okay, 2019. I have two favorite albums 2019. I cannot tell which one is better, and it's Slipknot's "We Are Not Your Kind" and Tool's "Fear Inoculum." I was pretty hyped about "We Are Not Your Kind." As you may know, on my album rank from Slipknot, I've ranked this as my 3rd favorite, and it's already at number 3 whenever I've listened to that album the first time. Instantly at number 3. And it still is right now. I don't know if it's gonna change a bit in the past few months. I don't know, but yeah, I also like the experimental stuff in this album. It's just what else was, yeah, I think it's probably their most experimental album I've heard ever since Volume 3. They started to have some experimental stuff on Volume 3 as well. And as for Tool's "Fear Inoculum," this is the band's first studio album in 13 years, which is 10,000 days, and this album blew my mind away. It may not be my favorite album by Tool, but it's definitely worth waiting for. So yeah, that's all I can say about these 2 albums, and that is my favorite album of each year in the 2010s. So if you enjoyed that video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe and turn on the notifications, and I will see you next time. Peace out.